am. And we have quite a bit to get into today. There's a, we're getting back into the issue of whether or not ESPN is actually a journalistic enterprise or an entertainment company. Nobody seems to know. ESPN doesn't seem to know. So that's a very interesting thing. Rick Carlisle he brought up some very interesting points about this. He brought up some very, very interesting points about this over the weekend. So we're gonna get into that. U.S. Soccer Federation, they're going to be voting for a new president, which is important because the United States thinks it's soccer. We were never great, but man, this is the worst that we've ever been, especially on the men's side of the game. Plus, there's a bunch of issues involved in soccer that need to be addressed in the United States, and we're going to get into that as well. SEC, is it good at basketball? Is it bad at basketball? I don't know, but it's really, really messy. And we're going to talk about the Patriots and the Titans, but for none of the reasons that you are actually thinking about. But first, let's start with the story about how the Tyner Rams, both the boys and the girls team, beat the East Ridge Pioneers. And they beat them handily in both games. The boys winning 63-38 and the girls winning 50-51-15, which, and I don't know if this is something that is like a true stat. I feel like it's my Keon Rose made up stat of the day. But it feels like anytime I look out and I just see a girls' basketball score, when those games are lopsided, they are really lopsided. I mean, they are 51-15. Just how bad do you have to feel like if you just showed up to a place and you scored 15 points? I don't know, man. You got to keep your chin up, though, because that's tough. That's tough. But Tyner got out there and had an impressive performance from Leandra Melton. She scored 14 points. Shot the ball from all over the place. I just think that Tyner, I wouldn't say quietly, but they are a very, very good basketball school. And the boys team winning as well, powered by Javon Craddock to start the game. 2 3-pointers early in the game opened up a 14-0 run from which the Rams never looked back. 63-38, mercy. Tyner's been having themselves an incredible season, and it continues. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose here on 92.7 FM, all new Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. So I want to drift over to college hoops, to the SEC, because I think that this is going to be something that is worth looking forward to for the rest of the year, which is that the SEC is looking a little messy. It's looking a little bit messy. It's looking like a league worth watching, where in years past, we always were watching the Kentucky show. Now, Kentucky actually did look vulnerable last year at points, though when they got to the tournament, they turned it on and they looked very good, right, with Malik Monk and DeAndre Fox. I mean, they looked very, very good. I think that Kentucky can do that again this year, but this is an SEC team or SEC league that is deeper than it's been in a little bit that we've seen, right? Like Auburn looks really good. They're at the top of the standings in the conference. Auburn looks really good. Georgia looks really good. Florida looks really good. Tennessee's in the mix. They look really good. All of these teams are playing pretty well in conference. I would say Tennessee is the team that I'm not sure what their actual identity is just yet. They're 2-2 in the conference. They've lost a couple of games to teams I thought they should have beaten, right? They dropped a game to Arkansas. I forget who they dropped the other game to, but they were able to defeat, of all teams, in their 2 victories in the SEC, Kentucky, right? Handing Kentucky their only conference loss thus far. And so I'm looking at a Tennessee team that's actually very, very good, but inconsistent. And I don't know what it is that they do to make that better. I don't know how they remedy that necessarily, but they look good. Like when I watch them on TV, I look at a team, they're playing with a lot more confidence than they have in years past, a little bit more swagger. And I think that this is a team that can make the tournament. They could have made it last year. They didn't win the games that they needed to at the end of the year, and they fell short. And I think rightfully so. I don't think that they deserve to get in. But this year, I'd be hard-pressed to find a reason that they don't deserve to get in, as well as 3 or 4, maybe even 5 SEC schools, right? And the SEC is starting to come back around as a basketball conference. I'm not saying that it's been a basketball conference, but The SEC used to be really good at basketball. I remember being a kid. I remember watching the SEC be dominant, right? When Bruce Pearl was at Tennessee, when Tubby Smith was at Kentucky. I remember SEC basketball being good when I was a kid, and something happened between when I was a kid and now, and lost its way is the only way to say it. And Kentucky has been the shining light of SEC basketball for the longest time, to the point where you almost have to ask the question sometimes, how good is John Calipari and how good is Kentucky really? You do, because there's been no real competition for this school in this conference for a while. None. And now the competition is here. Kentucky, by the way, is still looking like a good basketball school. Right? Which is good, because, I mean, that's what they've got going for them in the SEC. They're coming around in football, but God forbid you take basketball away from Kentucky. I don't know what they'd have left. I'm just saying, it just looks to me like we're going to start to get some real answers about Kentucky. Now, I never doubted the legitimacy of Kentucky, and I never doubted the legitimacy of Calipari. I still doubt his legitimacy as a coach, but as a recruiter, that's second to none. And the deep tournament runs that he's been able to go on, again, not championships, as I think a guy with as much talent as he's had should have won, but the deep tournament runs that he's been able to go on, I don't think you get to second guess Calipari in terms of his quality as a coach. Right? Maybe not the best X's and O's guys, but certainly a brilliant recruiter, right? Certainly on that level. My thing is, when you put him up against the rest of these SEC schools that are starting to look really, really good, does Kentucky come out on top? And how good are they going to prove to be this year? This is not exactly the most talented Kentucky team we've ever seen. It's talented. They're always talented, though. There are ups and downs in this kind of thing, right? Like, I don't see on this team a DeAndre Fox, Malik Monk kind of guy. I don't see on this team necessarily an Anthony Davis, John Wall, like a guy that you know at the next level is a transcendent talent who can take over games and single-handedly be the force that fixes a team. I don't see that on these Kentucky squads. And so I think that this is a year where Kentucky can be dethroned. And by the way, this is not exclusive to the SEC. I mean, I'm looking all over college basketball, and I'm watching a number of leagues where there's a shakeup happening, where you're just starting to see some talent drift around, right? I see it in the Big 12 as well, which is the other league that I watch when I watch college hoops. I see it in the Big 12. I'm watching Oklahoma be dominant, be the big boy on campus in the Big 12, where it was once Kansas, where Kansas ran the show. And I don't know if it's the last 10 or 10 years where Bill Self and Kansas have either tied for the Big 12 championship or just won it outright. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen this year. I think that changes. And I think that changes in the SEC as well. I don't think that Kentucky's going to have as clear a path as they want, because they're going to have to go through Auburn and Florida and Georgia, right? Like, I don't think that they're going to go through Tennessee, but Tennessee's already tripped them up once, right? And it just takes a number of these other schools to just trip you up. That Alabama is good enough to trip you up, right? They're not great, but this isn't about great. This is about bringing your A game every single night, because any of these schools are at least now good enough to trip you up. And we're going to see what it's like to have a sort of downside where your team is built consistently of young players, of freshmen, of one-and-done guys. What does that look like for you? What does that do to you? Right? We're going to see that. Because I'm looking at Ole Miss and I'm looking at Alabama. I'm looking at Mississippi State. These schools are not great, but they're good enough to trip you up. And yet Kentucky still ranked higher in RPI. And it is true that Kentucky plays a more difficult schedule than everybody else. That is a fact. because they've got all the national games. I mean, that's just what it is, right? Like Kentucky feels like they're good enough to beat a lot of these other schools. They're the challenger, or they're the champ. Everyone else is the challenger, sort of schedule. But they've already been tripped up by Tennessee in conference, and you look ahead at some of these games that they've got coming up, and there's no reason to believe that they can't be tripped up by Mississippi State or Florida, right? They play these schools to end the month. They have to play Tennessee again. Will they have figured that out? They end the season with Auburn. Right? And so, yeah, they have played very talented schools. They've played Louisville and won. They played UCLA and lost. But they haven't played the more difficult part of their conference schedule just yet. And they've already been tripped up once. And there's no reason to believe that anybody's tripping up Auburn. I don't think. Auburn's been lights out, 15-1, 3-0 in the conference so far. Right? They've got a challenge coming up Saturday. They play Mississippi State at 3:30. So that's going to be an interesting game, right? Because you've got Mississippi State is a 13-2 team, right? They've only played 2 conference games so far, won 1, lost 1. So we're going to find out whether or not Mississippi State has any of the potential of being the real deal. But that's Auburn's first big challenge. But I just don't see it. Right? Like, I'm not looking at any of these schools and I'm particularly terrified for Auburn. Auburn's winning in a variety of ways. They rally from down. They beat you badly. They can come from behind. They don't give up leads when they get them. Right? They beat Ole Miss the other day. Rallied from what? They were down double digits. Had to come back late. Ended up winning by 6. You know what I mean? Like this is a team that's built to win, and I think that Auburn is legit. And I think that they're the best team in the conference. Right? Which is a weird thing to say for a number of reasons. One, it's weird to say that Kentucky isn't. It still feels strange to believe that Kentucky isn't, but Kentucky isn't. Right? I'm not going to say it's not even close. It's close, but they're not. But also, it feels weird to say that Auburn's good, because, like, when was the last time that Auburn was legitimately good? That you watched an Auburn basketball team and thought, that's a good basketball team. Right? They were solid last year. They were solid last year, but they were solid and mostly forgettable. This year's team is actually good. This team is actually good. And that cannot be overlooked in all of this. Right? Mustafa Heron, he's averaging 15.8 points a game, man. Lighten it up from 3. Bryce Brown, also averaging 15.6 points a game, also lighten it up from 3. Like, Auburn's got shooters everywhere, and they've just sort of decided, we're just going to space you out and shoot your eyes out. All of their top scorers shoot 30% and above from 3. Right? Like, their top 5, 6 scorers shoot 30% and above from 3. Right? 30% is not great. It's passable. But you've got Harper shooting 43%. Jared Harper. You've got Chumo Okeke shooting 42.5%. You've got guys that are lighting it up. Like, this is a difficult basketball team, right? Like, I'm not looking at a bunch of guys and going, well, here's your standout star necessarily, but I am looking at a team that can space you out and that can shoot. Right? And they're second in the SEC in points per game. They're 11th in Division I basketball overall. right? Now, defensively, it's not great for Auburn, right? Like if they have a weakness, it's that they don't defend anybody. I mean, they couldn't defend a soul. I mean, looking like an actual turnstile out there. They are 200th in Division I basketball. They are 10th in the SEC defensively. But as long as they play the game that they want, which is to turn every single game into a track meet, I mean, good luck. Good luck. I mean, yes, there's a way to change the tempo of Auburn basketball such that you have an opportunity to win, so that you give yourself a chance. But good luck with that. Good luck with that. I mean, we're looking at a team that has decided to beat you with math, right? Which is how I felt about the Warriors that first season that the Warriors really broke out. That was a team that decided that we're beating you with math. We are going to take the same amount of shots that you are taking, but our shot is worth more than your shot. We're just going to shoot a bunch of them. And Auburn is built in that fashion, right? Like I said, I don't know, and I have to watch more Auburn basketball, which I plan to do, but I don't know right now which of these guys necessarily has superstar potential. If I had to hazard a guess, I would say Mustafa Heron or Bryce Brown, but I don't know. But I will tell you this. Auburn shoots the ball quite like nobody else in the SEC. And that's why they're the best team in the SEC. That's why they're going to be incredibly difficult to defeat. Look, you have one of those days where it's live by the three, die by the three. But a lot of times when what I'm seeing with Auburn is sometimes you get it both in one game. That they start off slow because the shots aren't falling, and they don't panic. They don't give up. They don't quit. They just keep shooting. And then the shots do start falling. And then you see what ends up happening where they have a win over Ole Miss, where they come from behind and they are able to take control of that basketball game in large part because they shoot better. That's going to be tough to beat, right? And this is a thing where I feel like Auburn has got themselves a lead over Kentucky in the SEC, which is this. That the Kentucky's thing has always been, we're going to out-athlete you. That John Calipari always recruits the best athletes, not necessarily the best shooters. And his teams have always had that as a weakness. The guys that can shoot, and the guys that can't shoot. And there hasn't been a player that stays at Kentucky long enough where when he's recruited, he can't shoot. And when he's done, he can shoot. Because you can only stay a year. Right? Like, you're not fixing your shot in the winter season that you're there. Calipari gets better athletes than most guys. When Bruce Pearl's gone out, and he's got better shooters. And quite frankly, that's a strategy that works a whole lot better in modern basketball. Plain and simple. That all of your starters shoot over 30% from three. All of them. That to me is alarming. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just easily impressed. That to me is insane. That all of your starters, every single last one, shoots about 30% from three or higher. And you have a guy in Patrick Kelm, and this is going to be one of those tournament things that you have to pay attention to, because Patrick Kelm doesn't play very much and doesn't score very much, but he shoots very well from three. I'm just saying, it's in the tournament or in the conference tournament even, where you start to pull a guy off the bench because he's a specialist. But everybody on this team can shoot, and I don't know if the rest of the SEC necessarily has answers for that outside of, well, we'll just wait until they get cold, which is not a great strategy. Right? They're 15-1, which means that's only worked for somebody once, and it hasn't worked for anybody inside of this conference at all. I'm looking forward to the Mississippi State game. I really am. And I'm glad that SEC basketball is back in a sort of way. I'm glad that it looks good, that it is watchable, that it is fun, that it isn't Kentucky and a bunch of other teams chasing Kentucky, that this thing's gotten a little bit messy, that you've gotten some good teams, some entertaining basketball. This is what it's about, man. Clutch with Keon Rose on all new Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com. 92.7 FM. U.S. Soccer voting for a new federation president. What on earth does it mean, and why does it matter? Next.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM. 3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM's news now.
Walker County deputies say that they shot and killed Mark Parkinson because he pointed a gun at them. His family says he died trying to protect his family. Deputies were at his home because of a 911 call made out of Higdon, Alabama by an elderly woman with dementia. The GBI has taken over the investigation. A slick sheen of fuel covers the top of Citico Creek right where it flows into the Tennessee River. Norfolk Southern taking responsibility for the spill of over 1,000 gallons of fuel. They've hired several cleanup companies to try to get the fuel out of the water. In Copper Hill, a boil water advisory continues. It's been in effect for about a week. It's all because of a water main break in McKaysville, Georgia, where the main water supply for Copper Hill comes from. Local restaurants having to boil hundreds of gallons of water just to maintain daily operations. The Sean Hannity Show, weekdays 3 to 6 on Nooga Radio. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7. Now.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader, Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
Oh man, rush. I've got to get stuff for the party. Where can I go? It's going to give me a wide selection of beer, wines, and spirits. Oh, I've got it. I'll go to Harry's Wine and Spirits, Signal Mountain. Maybe East Brainerd Wine and Spirits in East Brainerd. I could go to Riley's Wines and Spirits in Hickson. Wow, look at the huge selection in here. Look at these great prices. Amazing. Oh yeah, I'm going to find something for my lady too. I'm going to make this party a success.
Make your party a success when you stop in at Harry's Wine and Spirits in Signal Mountain, East Brainerd Wine and Spirits in East Brainerd, and Riley's Wine and Spirits in Hickson. An automated nuclear missile defense system has suddenly entered into launch mode, and you are the only one who can stop it. Escape Experience Chattanooga. Your team has just been infected with a deadly virus. Your only hope? There, in an abandoned farmhouse. Escape Experience Chattanooga. Handcuffed in a maximum security prison, you have an hour to flee. Escape Experience Chattanooga. These escape scenarios and more at Chattanooga's best escape room, game, and team building platform. Call now. Slots are limited. Register online at escapeexperience.com/Chattanooga. Escape Experience Chattanooga.
If your computer is running slow, if you have viruses, if someone called you asking to get into your computer, just say no. If a screen pops up on your computer saying your data is going to be deleted and you have to call this number, don't call it. You need to call Affordable Computers. You wouldn't invite a stranger to come into your house to look at all your books and records, so why would you invite someone to look at your records on your computer? With one wrong click of the mouse, you could be allowing access into your entire system. At Affordable Computers, we can stop them now. Don't be fooled by scammers and pop-ups that tell you must call this number or your hard drive is going to be deleted. You need to call Affordable Computers. Call Affordable Computers now. Microsoft is never going to call you. Microsoft is never going to ask you to call them. If you see that on your screen, you are being scammed. Stop and call Affordable Computers. 423-499-1975. That's 423-499-1975. In Fort Oglethorpe, call 706-858-5888. That's 706-858-5888. Affordable Computers.
95.3 HD4, 92.7 FM.
Expect fair to partly cloudy skies to continue through your nighttime. Cold overnight, lows mid and upper 20s. Now for your Wednesday, look for some sunshine with a breeze out of the north, though. Light cold, highs up around 40 with more mainly dry and cold weather expected through Friday. Celebrate the new year with Dixieland Fireworks, locally owned with the largest selection around. A Black Hat dealer with the lowest prices in Dixie. Dixieland Fireworks, just off I-75 on Ringgold Road, East Ridge. And I'm Storm Team 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare.
Broadcasting live to over 1 million souls in Chattanooga, the Tennessee Valley, and beyond on frequency modulation 92.7. Sean Hannity, 25,000 watts on digital FM 95.3 HD4. CBS Radio News. NASCAR, Bloomberg Markets, David Tulis, streaming strong at NoogaRadio.com. Live on YouTube and Facebook. Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7. Chattanooga Radio.
You're listening to all new Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com, 92.7 FM, Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today. Yeah, I have a new reason to root against the Patriots. And that's Tom Brady. Yeah. Yes, Tom Brady. Listen, I like Tom Brady. I'm not going to stand here and sound like a Tom Brady hater because I'm not a Tom Brady hater. Tom Brady is one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen play football in my life. And if I had a longer lifetime and seen more people play football, Tom Brady might still be one of the greatest football players that I've ever seen play football in my life. So there is the nice word of warning at the top of this thing that I'm not a Tom Brady hater. But Tom Brady is becoming an insufferable person. He's becoming an insufferable person. And he's becoming an insufferable person in the same way that Kobe Bryant became an insufferable person, right? That Kobe Bryant got wrapped up in the mentality and the psychology of being Kobe. And the reason why that's insufferable has less to do with Kobe and more to do with Kobe fans, which Kobe fans would follow Kobe off a cliff, right? You know, your mom used to say, don't listen to your friends. Would you follow your friends off a cliff if they said fall off a cliff? Well, if Kobe Bryant said fall off a cliff, there's a large swath of Americans that would march like lemming straight off the edge of some unknown precipice simply because Kobe Bryant said so. And Tom Brady's right there. Tom Brady is high on his own supply of success. And it is impossible, right? Now, this could be funny, right? Like with Kyrie Irving, Kyrie is funny because Kyrie has really not done anything to achieve that same level of being that guy, right? Like Kyrie's got a title, but he's got a title because LeBron was there. Kyrie's not winning another title without another LeBron-esque talent. And I'm not talking about simply another superstar. Kyrie is not dragging anybody to a title. Someone will always be taking him, right? Like that's just what this is. So I look at it and I go, okay. I think it's funny when Kyrie does this stuff and Kyrie starts talking about the flat earth and Kyrie does the commercial where he is metaphorically and also literally levitating above the rest of us. That guy, that's funny. It's not funny when Brady does it because Brady's actually good enough to where he should have some self-awareness, and the self-awareness is not clicking in. So Tom Brady's got the TB12 method. I'm sure you've seen his book in bookstores. I've wandered around Books A Million here in Hickson, and I've wandered around the Barnes & Noble at Hamilton Mall. And I've got to tell you, I haven't gotten the courage to open the TB12 book because I don't want Tom Brady to turn into the person that I think Tom Brady is turning into, which is Tom Brady's going to be the old man selling you drugs. Right? Like, people sell you stuff you don't want when they become former athletes. Well, maybe you want it because the George Foreman grill is nice. It's a very useful product. I have a George Foreman grill. I didn't buy one. My friend gave it to me. But my point is, the athletes get old and then they try to sell you stuff you don't want. Right? Is Brett Favre in 6 or 7 commercials, right? Brett Favre is selling you jeans. Brett Favre sells you tractors. Brett Favre sells you a ton of things that you did not ask for and do not want. And that's fine. Unless that stuff is medicine based on pseudoscience, in which case that is not fine. Not fine at all. And Tom Brady's doing it. He is out here actually selling a method based on pseudoscience. And if you think that this is something that is going to end when Tom Brady is done playing football, you, sir, madame, whoever's listening, are mistaken. This stuff does not go away with time. No, not at all. This stuff gets worse the further people get away from the game. Like, this is literally the next phase of his career, right? Because Tom Brady's not going to play football forever. He would like to think so. He can't. The human body was not designed to play football, and he has played it longer than most. And I'm telling you this right now because I called it when I talked about Peyton Manning, and it's because I've just seen it happen, and you've seen it happen too. When guys get old, they get all the way old at once. Jerry Rice was an ageless wonder until one day he was not. And he couldn't catch anymore. And he didn't look like the Jerry Rice that we used to know Jerry Rice as. right? Joe Montana. Joe Montana. The 49ers traded him to the Chiefs, and he looked like he still had gas in the tank. For like 1 or 2 years, Joe Montana looked legitimately like a good quarterback, and then all of it came apart all at once. I'm telling you, football is that kind of game. When it falls apart, it all falls apart, and it's going to do that for Brady too, whether or not he wants that to be the case. And when he's done playing football, Tom Brady's going to be the annoying guy peddling medicine based on pseudoscience to you and to me, because that's the next phase of his career, whether or not we want it. And to be absolutely and abundantly clear, I can't speak for you, but I will speak for myself. I don't want it. I don't want it. But no, this is where we're going to wind up. And anything that can make that less likely to happen, any small thing, right? I want that to happen. And thusly, I will be the biggest supporter of the Tennessee Titans this weekend. I mean, that's just it. I mean, that's how I circularly talked myself into rooting for the Titans, even though I don't believe that the Titans have a snowball's chance in hell against the Patriots, right? And I just don't. They're not good enough. And it's not got anything to do with experience, which I saw an article about that, and I just wanted to laugh. It's not about experience. The Patriots have a better team. They've got the better coach. They've got the better players, right? They've got the better quarterback. They've got the better tight end. Mariota and Delaney Walker are a good combination. They're not as good as Brady and Gronk. Yeah, Tennessee runs the ball better. Derrick Henry, even without DeMarco Murray, Derrick Henry is a better running back than what they've got going on in New England. But that's never mattered in New England, because New England is okay with using their short passing game as their running game. So again, that's never been a problem. New England also is really good at using wide receivers you and I have never heard of in order to win football games. So again, that does not appear to be a problem. New England is the better football team because Bill Belichick is a better coach than Mike Mularkey. End of story. However, if you think that means I'm going to be sitting out here rooting for Tom Brady and his pseudoscience, you are largely mistaken. Also, Tom Brady is going to be in a documentary called Tom versus Time, and it's going to be the pseudo-intellectual crap of your nightmares. Allow me to read a quote from this movie, filmed by the son of Deepak Chopra is his name. Is he? I would say pseudo-intellectual philosopher. Because Deepak Chopra is that guy that believes that if you want something badly enough, it'll just happen. Okay, sure. Okie doke. Yeah, you just got to want it. Like deep in your soul, and then it'll happen. Like, I don't know. Deep in my soul, I've wanted a Mercedes-Benz. And yet, here I am, Benzless as the day I was born. So here's a quote from this movie. I do want to know the whys in life, Brady said. I do want to know why we're here, where we're going, trying to find that deeper purpose, to live it. To live it through sports in a very authentic way makes so much sense to me. And I read that, and my stomach turned inside of itself. And I wanted to just blow my lunch all over my desk. I almost did. It's disgusting. It's disgusting what I just read there. And that is one of many such quotes in that movie. Tom Brady is the guy that's going to be selling you medical pseudoscience for the next 20 years of his life as he gets to be, old and fat and gray. This is the monster that's been created. And I'm telling you this, and I'm warning you of this because it's not going anywhere, which means you've got to root for the Titans, because anything that can stand into the way of furthering the legacy of a man whose destiny is to sell us a bunch of things we don't want is good enough for me. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on all new Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com here on 92.7 FM. So Rick Carlisle had some words for ESPN, and I think it just applies to the media in general. But so Rick Carlisle was talking about the way that ESPN was covering the recent skirmish with LeVar Ball and Luke Walton. LeVar Ball had some things to say about Luke Walton, the head coach of the Lakers. And Rick Carlisle wasn't a fan of it, happens to believe that Luke Walton is a very, very talented basketball coach. And he deserves better than that. He deserves a certain level of respect for being a coach. And I understand that mindset. Coaching is a fraternity. All of these guys look out for each other. I don't know if Luke Walton is a good coach. It's hard to tell. Is his team bad or is he bad? I don't know. It's always hard to tell when a guy is coaching a bunch of talentless players or a bunch of really young players or some combination of the two. The Lakers are really, 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 really young. So it's hard to tell whether or not Luke Walton is the problem or the Lakers are the problem for being so young, right? I feel like the same thing is also applicable to Hugh Jackson and the Cleveland Browns. Is Hugh Jackson bad or are the Browns bad? And I imagine that there's somewhere in the middle where you could meet on that. But with Luke Walton, LeVar Ball had some words to say, and Rick Carlisle was not pleased that ESPN decided to go ahead and publish these things. And I think that Rick Carlisle's being torn apart rightfully, right? Because on one level, he is there saying that ESPN owes it to the NBA and owes it to coaches to not run stories that are harmful to the coaches because there's a partnership there. And that's silly because ESPN can run whatever they want. But ESPN is not a journalistic enterprise, and for them to pretend to be a journalistic enterprise is hilarious, quite frankly. They're an entertainment enterprise, right? Like the purpose of ESPN is to entertain. They are a branch of Disney. Their purpose is entertainment. They didn't sign all of these deals with the NBA and the NFL and the NCAA for the journalistic integrity. They signed all of these deals for the entertainment value, which means if LeVar Ball says something particularly juicy to the media, they're going to run with the story, not because it's got journalistic value, which it might, right? Because he is a newsworthy person. But that's not why they're running the story. They're running the story because they're an entertainment company. That's what they do. That's what they're here for. That is, rather unsurprisingly, why they exist. The same company that makes your Marvel movies is the same company that owns your sports network. I mean, of course. Like, of course they're not out here trying to necessarily print things of journalistic value, right? Because everything that LeVar Ball says is not worthy of being printed into a story unto itself, right? Like LeVar Ball says some things, and, you know, if he's getting into a beef with the president, that matters. That's vaguely important and really interesting. But if LeVar Ball has some stuff to say about his son's head coach, why is that newsworthy? Right? Like, literally, like, what does that do? It's not like Luke Walton's going to listen to LeVar. So why is that newsworthy? Why does that matter? Does anybody care what LeVar Ball thinks about Luke Walton? Because I don't. Right? And the only reason why this story even matters to me is because Rick Carlisle wants ESPN to print things that are beneficial to coaches. And I don't think that that's the way to do it at all, right? Like, don't do that. I think that they should try to be journalistic in some way, but we do live in a world and we do live in a culture now where we trust the news media less than we have ever trusted it. And we trust it less. And it's the direct fault of the news media. And I'm talking all of them, not just ESPN. I'm talking Fox. I'm talking all of them. Because what they're trying to do is cater to their base, right? Like Fox News, Sean Hannity, they're trying to cater to their base. And CNN tries to cater to their base. And MSNBC tries to cater to their base. And that's not news, folks. Right? Like the news is just what happened. Why? How? Where? When? Who? That's the news. And everything else is commentary. And I think that we've gotten to a point where we mistake commentary for the news. So Rick Carlisle wants ESPN to be more beneficial to coaches because Rick Carlisle lives in a world that we all live in where he sees the commentary and he wants the commentary to not be negative. Well, that's not how this works, right? Like you get paid millions of dollars as a head coach. You're going to have to take the good commentary with the bad commentary. But I think we're all guilty of making the news commentary. And that's a problem. And one that if we don't fix, we're going to have fragmented news media and people aren't going to trust the news sources that don't say the things that they like, which is so obviously problematic that I'm really not going to use up any more time going into it. But we run the risk of getting to that point. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on all new Nooga Radio, NoogaRadio.com. here on 92.7 FM. It's clickbait. Anytime you run a story on LeVar Ball, it's all it is. It's clickbait. You want people to click on the story. You don't really care if it's got value because it doesn't. There is no other player in the league where if their dad says something about the coach, it's news. It's not news. Nobody cares. Literally nobody cares. But ESPN went ahead and put it out there because they think you care. You're the base. They're trying to cater to you. You just got to stop clicking on it, man. I mean, that's the best I have to offer is if you see a story and you don't care, don't click on it. Right? Like they'll put a headline on it that sounds controversial and it sounds wild, but don't click on it, man. Don't click on stuff that doesn't matter. That's the only way to get the news media to be as honest as you'd like them to be. Like, and if it matters and they're wrong, well, that's one thing. But if it matters, it matters. If it doesn't matter, don't click on it. So the last story I've got to go into is the one that I find to be the most interesting, but also I feel like maybe I'm the least qualified to talk about it, which is that U.S. Soccer, the U.S. Federation, they're voting for a new president, which is noteworthy because U.S. Soccer, particularly the men's national team, is trash. And so we need to fix it. We've got to fix all of these problems, right? Because there are a myriad of issues to fix, right? We could talk about how the women don't get equal pay to the men. I don't know. You think of U.S. Soccer, who do you think of? You can name some women on the U.S. women's national team, right? Hope Solo, who, by the way, is running for U.S. Soccer Federation president. Hope Solo was, for years, one of the faces of it. But Alex Morgan was another one. Megan Rapinoe was another one. Like, I can name women on that soccer team off the top of my head, by the way. None of this is written down. Because that team's good. Because when you watch the U.S. women's national team play soccer, they win. And yet they get paid less, right? And listen, it's one thing if they generate less money, but they don't, right? Like it's one thing if less people want to watch it, but that's not true. They're a huge draw. They get major ratings. So they deserve to be paid better, right? They don't deserve to be paid less than the men if they are better. They don't deserve to be paid less than the men if they're the bigger draw. And I promise right now, they're the bigger draw. So that's one of the problems, right? One of the other problems, and I actually think is the biggest problem blocking this sport, because it is a problem of talent, which is U.S. soccer, especially on the men's side, is not a meritocracy. We're not getting the best players on the pitch. We're not getting them out there to play wearing the red, white, and blue. Now, part of it is that you're going to lose some guys to football, basketball, and baseball, maybe even hockey. You're going to do this. This is inevitable. But I still think that there's enough talent out there because, my God, there's 350 million people that live in this country. There's got to be enough talent out there to generate a good quality sports team that is not out here losing to Costa Rica. That exists. Such a team exists, and I promise you it's there. And some of those kids may not necessarily have the opportunity to play soccer growing up. So you've got to get those kids the opportunity, because I'm all about equality, right? Now, I'm not about equality of outcome because that's dangerous. I don't think everyone deserves the same thing, but I do think that everyone deserves chances. And if you're poor and you have less chances just because you're poor, well, that's the problem, right? I don't think you deserve to just be on the team because you're poor. But if you're poor, then I think you deserve the opportunity, I think, to play the game, to learn to like it. For there to be clubs, funded clubs for kids to go and play soccer. Because this is something that happens in every other nation on earth, is that poor kids play soccer. Right? And some of the best soccer players that have ever played, Ronaldinho and Pele, grew up poor. They did. You got to find those kids. or you're never going to be good. And that's a huge problem. And I imagine the upcoming U.S. Federation of Soccer president will address it. I don't know how you elect these people. And I'm not going to lie. I saw the list of names. I don't think you care. Just understand that it's happening, and whatever ends up happening is going to have a big impact on U.S. soccer going forward. So it's worth keeping in mind. Clutch with Keon Rose here on all new Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com, 92.7 FM. Remember, folks, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch, and I'll see you in 24 hours.
Truex Jr. is off the pace, and he is headed to the pit lane. Elliott Cowherd around the outside. Michael McDowell pops the right front tire. Here's Martin Truex to the bottom. Blaney blocks him off too. Meanwhile, Chase Elliott went 4 wide on the back straightaway. They're side by side for the lead.
Hear it live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Nooga Radio.